I can't do without you. Because you have brought me a long ways. You sure have. I'm proud of you. But you know, you're my leadership. But you always be around my here. Well, thank you. Thank you for everything. What I said is true. God bless you.
You know, when I thought about doing, when we were talking about doing Youth Sunday, and they were like, your class is going to lead it this next time, and I'm like, okay, yeah, we can do that. We've been doing purpose-driven life. We'll talk about purposes. And I really felt like the Lord told me, he's like, no, talk about testimony. Jessica and I were driving in the car, and she's like, you know, doing something about testifying would be really great. And I was like, you know, that's what the Lord keeps telling me. And so, you know, especially our youth that's in here right now, all of you guys are here today, and no matter how young or how older in our youth classes you are, even Madden, even Alice, they're still hearing. You know, they're still getting to feel what we feel. They're very inquisitive. They pick up on how we feel and what we say. And so I guess to the youth, especially the teenagers in here today, really listen to these stories, because even in our young adult class, life can get difficult. You know, we have so many obstacles in our life and so many things, especially these days, that we have to deal with that, you know, it just is kind of astonishing that we even have to deal with sometimes. And so, you know, becoming stronger in our spiritual family and sharing with one another, and you guys coming to us when you need something, that's what we're here for. That's what we do. And every person in here has a different story, and we have different experiences that will really, you know, bring you to where you need to be. Don't be afraid to ask one of us, any of us. It doesn't matter who. If you're sitting on the back row right now and you're saying to yourself, I've been struggling with this, you know, pray about it. God's going to tell you which one of us to talk to. He's going to tell you what you need to do in this situation. Come to us. That's what we're here for. So, yes. There's one other person that God told me that I could ask today, and she's a little newer to the church, but I would love for her to tell how she came to the church. She told us in women's Bible study, and I just thought that obedience to the Lord was so strong in her, and that I feel like we all need to kind of live our lives being more obedient. Miss Linda, would you mind just to tell?
It was a Sunday, and I usually do my devotionals, and I read the Word, and I had this thought in my head. The day before, I had seen where somebody had gotten a map from last June 5th of 16 about things that are going to happen in America. From the fires that were out west to Harvey and Marie, the hurricanes. And as I was sitting there that day, Maria was supposed to come up Florida. And I remember seeing all these tornado signs like in the states above. And I was getting this spirit saying, make copies. Make copies. And my sister happened to post something of pictures of the disasters that were happening. So I made copies of these two things. And then it was go through the neighborhood. That I only know the people next to me. So I'm like, okay. So I started knocking on the doors and said, I am coming to you because I feel the Lord is saying we need prayer. So as I got accepted from some, got welcomed into the house at others, and as I was down the one street, and it's hilly, and I'm like, I got to go up there. And I'm going, you got to go down a hill, go up a hill to go up there. So I says, I'm cutting through the yard. which was a jaunt as itself. And that's where I came to Marcus's house. And I was talking to Jamie, and Gabriel was there, and I was telling my story, and then Marcus came up, and then I learned that he was a pastor of this church. And months earlier, I had asked the Lord, show me a church that is close to the house, because I don't like driving very far. And as I left their house and I was walking down that steep driveway, I was praising God for leading me, answering my prayer to come to a church that's close. And henceforth, that's why I'm here.
So, when Miss Linda told me that story, I was like, you know, what an obedient woman to do that. Like, there's so many things that come to our mind or come to our hearts that the Lord tells us to do, and we're like, people will think we're crazy. Why would we do that? When Miss Christian suggested to me, just call on somebody on Sunday, pray, see who comes to your mind. I was like, Harold and Linda are going to kill me. They're going to hate me. Like, but you know, the Lord is like, Brother Harold and Miss Linda's stories, someone in this church needed to hear them. And I've really, really tried through being at this church to really find a way to be more dutiful to Christ, be more obedient to God, do what I'm supposed to do and not just what I want to do or what's easier. Life is hard. You can take easy ways out, but sometimes that's not always the best way to go. Sometimes you have to have a little bit of a fight to get to the right place in the world. But the thing about it is God is always going to be there with you along that journey. He's always going to be right beside you, right behind you. And He's always going to be in front of you if you'll allow it. And so following His way to us really is the only way. And so we just hope that you guys really like this, and we hope that you'll share your testimonies with either people in the church, people in the community, anybody who will listen. If they don't want to listen, then we just pray for them and say, God bless you, and hopefully the next person will. And so, you just never know who you're going to impact. So, without further ado, Mr. Gillis, will you close us in prayer? Oh, sorry. You're fine. Sorry.
You stand up with me. The Lord spoke to me about being a witness for God. That's right. I will shake you up. We'll wake you up. About just being a witness for God. If you want to be a witness for God, then you got to step out. You know, a long time ago, before I ever came down here, I remember right before I came, I kept having this dream or this vision when I was in sin. Wasn't living right. And I remember one night I was in a honky tonk and there was this big dance floor. There's this particular girl that I just met her. And I remember that nobody was dancing. Nobody was on that dance floor. You know, you think, is that some kind of arrogant thing or is that some kind of prideful thing? No, he's just, something said, step out on that dance floor. But there wasn't nobody out there. I didn't want to be the first to step out there, but I went ahead, and I was living for the devil. I said, and God said, He said, I showed you that. He kept showing me that. So when I stepped out on the dance floor, then one by one, people began to follow. People began to step out after I stepped out on the dance floor. And right before I came down here, the Lord spoke to me. I'll never forget what He said, Brother Harold. He said, if you want to dance with me, He said, you got to step out on my dance floor. And He said, and then, He said, when you obey me and you step out, He said, then people will follow. So before we close, and Gil, you can close in prayer, I want to worship God. And I want us all to be obedient to God because you're the one that's got to step out. You're the one, look at me, that God's going to use. But you've got to be obedient and willing to do that. So this is probably my favorite song in the world. And I mean, it's a great song. It'll get you going. It's called God's Great Dance Floor. Hit it. Let's worship Him before we go. Amen. I mean, let's crank it up. And let's worship the King. Amen. He's worthy. Amen. So I want you to tell Him. I want you to raise your hand and say, God, I'm willing and I'm going to be obedient. And I'll step out on that dance floor. and I'll do what you tell me to do. Amen. God bless you, church.
Thanks for joining with us for the broadcast from New Beginning Worship Center in Greenback, Tennessee. We are located at 6501 Highway 411 South in Greenback, Tennessee, zip code 37742. Emails may be addressed to nbwcmailbox@gmail.com. Pastor Marcus Severance and the congregation invite you to join with us Sundays at 10 a.m. for teaching, followed by worship services at 11 a.m. and 6 p.m. We also meet midweek at 7 p.m. on Wednesdays. We're located on Highway 411 in Greenback, Tennessee, just 3 buildings down from the intersection of Highway 95. If you can't meet with us in person, please join us again next time for our broadcast.